Well, welcome back, guys. We're here for the advocacy series. This is the third series that we're going to do. No, the third, not series, the
In the
third
series.
episode within the series. There you go. So, again, if you haven't seen the first and the second, I highly recommend you guys check that out. The first one is about advocacy, why it's important, why we do what we do. The second one is how do you prepare for it, the before the visit. And today we're going to talk about, for me, the scariest part of all, the day of. Okay, this is when you're actually going to meet either with the chief of staff or the legislator. What do you do and how do you make it successful? So a lot of folks are really willing to help before this point, right? Do the research, gather the information, make the appointments. But when you talk about, all right, who wants to stand in front of them and talk about it? Then crickets. So Leslie, let's help dispel all the myths about meeting with the legislators, and also what can we do during the day of, the really basic stuff that we need to do to, one, be successful, and two, what do we need to keep in mind so that we're not all freaked out about this. So Leslie, welcome again.
Thank you so much.
All
I'm
right.
happy to be here. I think the first thing you can do when you feel that you're really prepared and you've arranged the meeting is to be, first of all, dress appropriately. Dress as if you show respect.
Okay.
So no jeans. I had to actually tell that to students. I couldn't believe it, that we were going on legislative visits. And
what if they're designer jeans? Come on,
No.
Leslie. No?
No.
Okay. All right. No jeans, guys.
It's a show of respect, which is not to say they might not wear jeans. They might, the legislator or their staff, especially on casual Friday in DC.
Yes, they do.
But you want to look professional and credible. So
Right.
again, it's a matter of respect. You want to be on time. A little
Okay.
bit early is good. I can also say that while you may be on time, they may be running late.
Right,
So
right.
just expect that. Don't be freaked out if you have to wait even, 30 minutes.
Right.
So you'll get there on time.
Right.
That's important. You'll be waiting. But,
Right.
If you've ever done legislative meetings in a row like they have to do, if one person is late or runs over or the conversation gets into a place where you need to get information,
Right.
everybody after that gets delayed
It
a little bit
snowballs.
more. And, that's just
Right.
how it is.
Right.
Just be cool with it. So you want to dress appropriately, get there on time, be patient, and then but you want to also be prepared. I never recommend more than 3 or 4 people to go into a meeting with
Right.
the legislator. I think any more is just too many.
Right.
If you're trying to be effective, if it's all just a
Right.
big giant meet and greet like legislative day or something,
Sure.
that happens. But if you're really trying to influence policy or legislation, you want no more than 3, max 4 people.
Right.
And you want to know ahead of time, and I don't mean on the sofa in the lobby before
Sure.
you get into the meeting. I mean well ahead of time. I'm going to be the introducer. I will be the facilitator of our group. I will introduce everybody, and then you give message 1 and you give message 2, and you're going to tell them about this, and then I will wrap up and we will reiterate the ask. So it's orchestrated. Now,
Right.
it doesn't always work so perfectly because the legislators themselves want to talk, which
course,
you
of
can
course.
understand that.
Right.
And some of them like to talk for 99% of the meeting.
Right. Right.
You just have to weave in your points. When they say something, you try to weave in your message to whatever the conversation is. So it is not just as basic as going around, but you want to be sure when you walk out of that meeting that you got your point across.
Right.
And so that's very important that you choreograph ahead of time
Right.
how you would like it to go.
So one of the challenges I've personally experienced is you talk about a subject matter and then they get passionate about a piece of what you're talking about and you go into a tangent. How do you reel them back into what you wanted to talk about in the first place?
Well, that comes actually with practice, and that's
Okay.
again, and politicians actually become very good at this with practice also, about weaving what they want to say into
Right.
any response that is being
How's the weather?
given.
Weave it in.
You weave it right in.
Right,
You know,
right.
you got to make connections between what is apparently important to them in that conversation,
Right.
and what it is you want them to know. And it can be tricky. I think, I've certainly been in meetings where it just, the legislator was talking about his personal life the whole time.
Right.
And we just had to basically say, I want to respect your time.
Right.
I know we have to go. We want to be sure that you're aware of this and how we feel about it, and we'll follow up with staff.
Right.
So if because you're always going to follow up with staff anyway,
Right.
you might as well make sure that you do,
So, do you have any tips or tricks for when you visit DC or Sacramento? Because what I've noticed is when you have back-to-back meetings, aside from being on time, just the logistics of it, knowing where the bathrooms are, knowing where the cafeteria is, having something handy for you just in case you don't have time to go to lunch. What are your tips and tricks from doing this for so long?
Well, it's interesting. I am a great believer in the protein bar.
Okay.
I will tell you that. And, in the Capitol, and I also have to warn students that in some buildings you cannot bring food at all,
Right.
not even a water bottle like
Right.
the Capitol.
Right.
So, if you need to eat, because there's a lot of walking,
Yes. Yes.
between the buildings and up
Right.
and down, and the hallways are long.
Right.
Restrooms, you'll find your way.
Sure.
You'll ask somebody.
Right.
You'll find. The one thing is you want to be able to have water, but expect to possibly have to throw it out.
Right. Okay.
But just have a protein bar. Eat it when you need to.
Right.
And and be prepared if you have to throw it out. The only place you really have to throw out food is the Capitol building itself
Right.
in Washington. But I think that's the way to do things. And then as far as lunch and things like that, the Longworth cafeteria is my
Right.
go-to place in DC when I'm doing legislative meetings. There are other places not too far, but that's
Right.
such a beehive of activity, and you get
Right.
to really see a lot of people there. So it's worth going to, and it's quick.
Right. And I bring this up because I've been in situations wherein I have 6 more meetings to go. I'm 4 in, and we've, ran out of time, so I don't have anything. So, and then your performance just declines after that.
Right. Yeah. You need fuel.
You need fuel. So, speaking of keeping things on time, how do you wrap up a conversation? I know this sounds pretty basic, but if they're, very passionate about something, how do you politely say, this is great, we need to go to another meeting? How do you do that?
They expect that. And
Okay.
believe me, everybody has to do that so that it doesn't hurt their feelings.
Okay, okay.
I just say very politely, I hate to bring an end to this conversation. I'm
Right.
so enjoying it.
Right.
We have another meeting that we really need to get to. It's going to take
Right.
us 10 minutes. So we want to wrap up, but we promise to follow up with staff on this, or we promise to provide this information you requested or whatever.
Right.
The other thing is, and I think this is something people don't expect, is if you don't have another meeting and they're talking and talking and talking,
Right.
let them talk.
Let them talk.
Let them talk. If you don't have another meeting for a
Right.
while, because I tend to budget in a pretty good buffer between meetings.
Right.
Because you never know what's going to happen. Let them talk.
Right.
If they need to stop, staff will swoop right in there and say, we got,
Yep,
whatever.
5 minutes.
So, but then you put it in their court to let them talk as much as they want, and that is valuable time for you to build the relationship and build a
Right.
repartee, and it's valuable.
So, how do you share enough about yourself without being too personal? I know there's an art to this because you want to build a relationship, and to do that, you have to share a little bit about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, where is the line that you keep away from, or
I don't know the whole TMI.
right? Exactly.
There is such a thing, but I think that the more personal that you can be without hitting the TMI, the too much
Right.
information,
Okay.
is good. If you can say, I noticed on your website in your bio that you have an autistic child, I do too.
Okay.
If
Is that kosher? Is that something?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the beginning, when
Right,
you're just
right.
having,
Yes.
when you're talking about the weather and all that
Right,
before you
right.
really get down, I think that's okay. I really do. I think that builds bonds. You really need to find out where those
Right.
bonds can be built. And again, you don't want to be overdoing it.
Right.
But we are humans trying to make a connection.
Yes, and this is definitely one of the things that I struggle with, trying to find what resonates, because each person has something that they resonate with, and trying to find that common link, common bond that goes beyond just the subject matter you're talking about.
Oh, sure.
And really links you to, what, we have a common cause here. And that's the cool thing about healthcare. Everyone has a story about healthcare.
Yes, they do.
Be it your family member, yourself, your kid, your mom. Everyone has something that they wish they could improve in healthcare. So it's not that big of a sell for HIMSS to do it. But I think you're right. Having that personal story and connecting it with the person you're talking to makes a lot of sense during and definitely during the follow-up.
And you could find this stuff. And I think, back, if you look at the past history of this legislator, not just what they've been since they've been in Congress.
Oh,
for
you're
instance.
right. You're right.
What were they before that?
Teacher, nurse,
and
doctor,
maybe they were
lawyer.
on boards and
Right.
commissions and
Right.
of organizations they cared about, like HIMSS.
Right.
And not to say they necessarily were on the board of HIMSS, but
Right.
they may have been. We do have a county supervisor in San Diego who was a senior vice president for HIMSS.
Oh.
But sometimes you can find out, what their more about what their interests are through looking at their past life as opposed to their current.
This is really good stuff, because I tend to focus more on what their issues are right now, and not really dig deeper into their history where you could find the connections. Again, another nugget of wisdom here brought to you by Leslie. Leslie, thank you very much. This was a great session.
Delighted.
All right, guys, so that's a wrap. Hope you learned something new, and we'll see you again soon.